Hi, everybody. I'm Wang. I'm here at Climate Week at Capgemini, and we're here with Sol Salinas, one of the leading voices in the world of climate tech, and sustainability. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ray. It's always a delight to be with you.
Well, tell us a little bit about your role here at Capgemini. What are you leading? Because you've got a big operation here.
So I lead the sustainability work for the Americas for Capgemini, and Capgemini has a very ambitious agenda and a very deep and wide portfolio of offerings that we make available to our clients across the globe, including sustainable strategy, sustainable products and business services, sustainable operations, sustainable IT, and monitoring. We have a full set of capabilities that we believe can make a demonstrable difference in the sustainability journeys of our clients, not only in the Americas, but of course, globally.
Yeah, and you built quite an ecosystem, right, of vendors and partners and other folks along the way. I mean, this is not just you guys looking at sustainability. It looks like entire village here.
Well, to your point, and we have come to the conclusion that the challenges that we face as a global community require an ecosystem of solutions, frankly, and we regard the default position as being one where we go to market with multiple ecosystem partners simultaneously. The challenges are grave, the time is urgent, and it's rare when we go to market by ourselves. We believe that 1 + 1 = 11 in the sustainability space, and time is running out. And so we do value those partnerships greatly.
Yeah, no, I've been impressed. I've seen everybody here. We've had some great conversations, anything from manufacturers to insurance companies to folks that are actually pioneering the latest climate tech. They're all here. Now, you recently published an amazing piece of research, really talking about AI, a world in balance series, really about what's happening there. And what I was thinking about is like really that shift of everyone moving to AI, the need to actually move to sustainability, the need to actually meet the rest of the needs of the demands. We're here during UN General Assembly Week. All these factors are converging in one. Tell us a little bit about some of those research findings, and especially in terms of views around what people believe is, true sustainability.
Absolutely. So Ray, the World in Balance series for us at Capgemini represent an opportunity for us to listen to our customers and our constituents about where they are and where they believe they need to be and how they should get there vis-a-vis their own sustainability ambitions. This is now the third report that we've issued. And one of the sort of landmark findings, frankly, is just the marked increase in commitment to sustainability, not only of developing journeys and mapping out sort of long-term strategies, but actually investing in them. And one of the elements of the World in Balance that we developed at Capgemini is a sustainability maturity model. And we use that index, if you will, to determine the progress of or lack of progress of our respondents relative to a baseline year of 2022. And if you look at the progress of investments, of commitments, of achieving actual milestones, we've seen a 22% increase across all of our respondents over the last 3 years, which we think is significant and encouraging. Now, if you think about, by the way, the number of respondents, we annually ask over 2,500 executives from 13 different countries, across 11 different industries, across 15 or more different titles, all representing organizations over $1 billion in annual revenue. So it's a pretty significant and robust set of voices that we hear from. And it's greatly encouraging to hear, again, that there is increasingly a commitment to what we all believe in, which is, of course, advancing sustainability, and to do so in a way that generates revenue and not just imposing costs on the enterprise.
Yeah, it's a great point, right? And one of the biggest areas that I saw a lot of investment from that report is really around circularity, right? And actually doing it at the beginning of the process in terms of building by design, the ability to actually get to zero waste and actually creating new types of opportunities in supply chains that we hadn't thought about before. That's a lot of investment. What do you think, and why do you think people are focused on that area?
I think there's been a great deal of attention given, Ray, to the amount of waste, unneeded waste, that all of us are putting into landfills in our oceans. And fortunately, that is the case. I mean, the mainstream media has I think, successfully alarmed us about the level of waste that we individually and institutionally are responsible for, whether it's the bioplastics, or whether it's the plastics waves that we see on the shores of some of the most beautiful beaches on the planet. Those things, I think, have raised, flags for individuals and institutions as well.
It's a great point, right? And I just sat in on the food waste session that was going on here at the Glass House, and that was actually pretty enlightening in terms of how people are trying to reduce that along the way and also doing it by design. There's a bigger piece in terms of what's happening in climate and sustainability and in terms of all the environment, and it's really around regulation. Where are we on regulation, and what are advances? Where do you see consensus, and where do you see we're going to still have differences around the world?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think for the purists like myself in the world, we see the advances in regulations around environmental reporting as being a very positive sign that the policymakers across the globe, whether it's in the United States and the Securities and Exchange Commission, or whether it's the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, that there is a recognition that yes, there's a carrot, but perhaps there's also a need for a little bit of stick, if you will. And what we're hearing from our clients, almost across the board, Ray, is that it does mobilize them to action. Over 70% of those respondents, senior executives, have basically said that yes, the regulations coming out of Europe, coming out of the state of California, coming out of the Securities and Exchange Commission has mobilized them to act, and to act not only in terms of reporting, but also to improving the performance across those aspects of their sustainability journey that they're reporting on. So it clearly has a very positive role.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing it as being an equalizer too, right? I mean, some countries are actually following the rules, others are not following the rules. It creates a disincentive and a disadvantage. And so that's where we see that regulation piece. But just as exciting as all the new climate tech. What gets you very excited, right? We've seen a lot here at this event, and more importantly, all throughout Climate Week.
Ray, we no longer have an excuse for non-action. I mean, maybe there was a time when we said to ourselves, well, do I really have the ability to introduce solar energy into my energy mix, or wind energy into my energy mix, or for that matter, small modular reactor energy electrons into my energy mix? That may have been the case years ago. That is no longer the case. Whether you live in the state of California or the state of Texas, or whether you're in Spain, there is really no reason why you can't now seek and act on opportunities to power your facilities and your manufacturing facilities and your commercial operations with renewable energy. Full stop.
It's a great point, right? I mean, we're also seeing that happen, especially given the boom in AI, right? And we see this intersection of AI and sustainability. You just saw Constellation Energy, not related to Constellation Research, Constellation Energy picked up with Microsoft the option of opening up 3 Mile Island again, right? So where do you see this? Or is this going to actually create a new wave of investment?
Well, certainly. I mean, I think one of the things that we've come to discover is that the nuclear energy that's available to us now is not the nuclear energy that we faced in the 70s during 3 Mile Island. It's just not the case anymore. The technology is significantly advanced.
100 megawatts, small modular reactors.
Exactly. And one of the things that we're looking at Capgemini, Ray, is the ability of SMRs, small modular reactors, to actually augment the energy capacity needs of data centers. You talked about Gen AI and AI solutions writ large. They are actually taking our energy capacity demands to the limit. And many energy data center providers are now looking to augment their current capacity with small modular reactors that they can quite literally park in their parking lots to meet those energy demands.
Yeah, and battery storage as well. We're seeing that, especially different trailers, as people looking at mixed modes of energy, all different options that are there. But while this is happening, your survey actually from the Capgemini Research Institute showed that people don't trust what's being said. What's up with the greenwashing?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good thing, frankly. I think it's a good thing that Generation Zers and millennials have a healthy skepticism about environmental claims. And you're exactly right. Our survey found that over 80% of Generation Zers have questions and do their homework, and they should be doing their homework. And I think that holds all of us accountable as they should. And my sense is that healthy skepticism to remain, and that sort of puts a burden on us to be more transparent, to be very clear, and to be very precise about how we report on our sustainability investments.
Yeah, and that consistency is super important. And a lot of times what's been happening is people don't really look at the holistic view of actually the sustainability initiatives, and they only see a small part, and actually they don't see the impact or the actual total impact of what's happening there. So now, are there regional differences? Are we seeing different things that are happening? And of course, the US versus Europe, or Europe versus APAC, APAC versus LATAM, EMENA?
Well, there's certainly differences in priority investments, if you will, in the Americas for obvious reasons. The level of investment that we've seen from the Biden administration on solar, on wind, on green hydrogen, on nuclear, et cetera, is such that it actually has significantly accelerated investments in those technologies by the energy providers and by end users. And interestingly enough, most of the beneficiaries of those funding opportunities have come in those states that perhaps you wouldn't first look at, like the state of Texas.
Yeah, like Texas.
Like Texas, I mean, some of the politically labeled red states, if you will.
They're so far ahead of energy in the energy grid.
They are absolutely far ahead of perhaps any other state in the union. So there are marked geographic differences in the United States. The other thing, of course, is if you look at the United States versus Europe, I mean, in Europe, there's a great deal of attention given to the corporate sustainability reporting directive. So there's a great deal of attention towards, okay, what do I need to report? Yep. You know, there's a term that's being used by the CSRD. It's called double materiality. This notion of course, you know, how does the work that I do impact the environment and social communities? And to what extent do I actually monetize the impacts of the products and services I provide by looking at the impacts that those products will have on the environments and communities? So those are the kinds of issues that we hear pretty frequently from our European colleagues for obvious reasons.
Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of regional differences and, of course, a lot of different approaches to get there. That's kind of part of the spirit of innovation, as people actually get there from a different approach and everybody learns from them, and, of course, standardizes and then builds off from there again. Now, there's a framework that's always in these Capgemini reports, and maybe it's you're doing, that talks about commit, act, monitor, and report. How do clients get started with that?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it's one thing for an organization to dabble in sustainability by adopting a circularity model across, you know, one category of products, or by simply doing the bare minimum to report in response to the CSRD or to the SEC Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions. That's one thing, and that has essentially been the case for too long. So we at Capgemini sort of feel it important to communicate to our clients the importance for them to commit holistically to a sustainability journey that includes improvements in energy efficiency, improvements in supply chain management, improvements in IT performance, improvements in all aspects of the business, so that collectively those initiatives have a demonstrable impact, positive impact on the environment. That is essentially the crux of our commit element of our story. But we also believe it really important that it's not good enough to simply commit to something and putting it out on a press release. We think it needs to follow with action. Yep. And so we are very heavily involved with clients across the globe, across multiple industries, aerospace and defense, the automotive industry, the OEMs, the energy and utility sector, et cetera, and getting them to understand that at the end of the day, there are methods to improve the way that you manufacture products and services, develop products and services, and that the way that you actually calculate the environmental improvements that come with sustainable practices. Yep. We also obviously believe it important that when you develop a reporting protocol, that it is fully encompassing of your E, S, and G activities, which is where the monitoring and reporting part of it comes from. So it is a full journey, and doing just part of that may actually play well, but it doesn't necessarily get you to where you need to be in terms of your commitments.
You know, great point. Last year, you and I think, were on stage, I believe, at our conference in Half Moon Bay, and we were thinking about, you know, what happened in the last few Climate Weeks. So what is good or bad? What surprised you so far about Climate Week this year?
I'll tell you what.
Isn't it bigger?
Yeah, it is bigger. And, you know, I think what's been really exciting for me this week is that the default position of those who are here representing their companies is not me versus someone else,
No.
but rather it's me and someone else. Now, it's been, we talked about ecosystems for a while, and we talked about partnerships, and we talked about synergy, but that's always been the exception. Who do I find? Now, I'm finding that the conversations are much more seamless, and they're more seamless about their ecosystems. And that's an exciting, I think, development for me. The default position now is I'm working with multiple players, and many of which I might have competed with in the past, but now we're complementary. And so the default position is now we're collaborating. The exception is I'm doing things on my own. I find that really exciting.
It is. That level of industry collaboration is important at this level of maturity. And I think that's really what people are working towards. And I think you actually have a lot more folks using the same language, which is also interesting. All right, predictions, 2025. What's going to happen?
I think AI and Gen AI in particular is going to sort of help us solve problems that we can't or we haven't solved yet. There are multiple issues that we've been facing as sustainability professionals for years. How do you, at the end of the day, aggregate the greenhouse gas emissions of your upstream suppliers? That is a difficult exercise, if not impossible. And we talk about supply chains, by the way, Ray, they're not chains, they're labyrinths. They're chains of chains of chains.
Yes, they are.
And so it's virtually impossible, frankly, to mobilize those interdependent labyrinths, if you will, but maybe it is now with AI. And we've actually developed methodologies with partners like Google to help us sort of identify those suppliers that represent a disproportionate level of your greenhouse gas emissions. Where are they? Who are the gatekeepers of those greenhouse gas emissions? How do you get to them? And can we schedule them? That's sort of the magic of AI and Gen AI in particular. Double materiality is another one where I think Gen AI can help us. So my sense is that there is a legitimate concern, and we certainly found this in our responses, that of course executives sort of feel like, well, isn't it the case that Gen AI actually does result in disproportionate levels of greenhouse gas emissions and water usage, by the way? The answer is yes. But the more that large language models learn, the less they'll have to learn again. So the more we deploy them, the less likely they are to have this disproportionate levels of greenhouse gas emissions. Point one. Point two is they can help us solve problems that's taken decades to figure out. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we definitely see Gen AI playing a role in procurement and supply chains, trying to identify those points, trying to find contract terms that are actually helpful, not helpful, out of compliance, and of course, trying to get consistency.
Yeah.
So always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
Okay.